Questing for Glory 3. I'm Ferran Burgundy, and I'll be here with you this evening for this 3-person race of Dragon Warrior 4 Randomizer. Yes, that's right, it's randomized. There was a question in chat, is this like the Dragon Quest series? It most certainly is. However, early in the series, it was released in North America under the title Dragon Warrior to avoid trademark conflicts with the unrelated tabletop role-playing game Dragon Quest, and Square Enix did not register the Dragon Quest trademark for use in the United States until 2002. So that's why back here, about a decade before, Dragon Warrior 4, or as you may know it now, Dragon Quest 4 Chapters of the Chosen, was in the mix here. So our 3 runners, they're going to be making their way through 5 different chapters, and I'll be kind of telling you how the story plays out along the way, but in the added mix, well, things are randomized. So you'll see character randomizations, you'll see enemy skills that are rather wild, to say the least. You'll see, to make things a little bit easier for everybody, you'll see that the experience in gold is multiplied by 5, so that way we don't have a whole bunch of grinding to do, at least not necessarily. So we can try to keep this within the 3 to 3.5 hour time frame. So in addition, let's see here, I'm thinking of what else to ramble on about here before while our runners are working on getting ready here. But yeah, we have Gameboyf9. He is the creator of the Dragon Warrior 4 Randomizer. And we also have 2 of the top runners of the game, Ryguy3745 and VaeluV. And yeah, we are just about set to go here. In a moment, they will be starting off here, and we'll get into Chapter 1, where normally we have the soldier Ragnar, who is trying to see what's going on with some kids who are missing. But in doing so, well, he'll get into a few troubles, battle, and things of that nature, and we're just about underway here. As I see the SRL countdown is making its way, so they'll be obviously selecting the message speed of fast because, well, it's a race. So we've got the Royal Soldiers to start off here. So yes, one of the King's soldiers, Ragnar, is set to investigate what is going on with some missing children in the nearby village. So they're all heading over to the southeast here to check a search spot, which has a scent pouch, which is not what our runners are looking for, as that's something that attracts enemies, and enemy encounters is something that our runners are not really looking for early on because, well, they want to be able to finish things as quickly as possible. So they're now looking at the various shops to see the items as well as the costs are randomized. So you can see there's a metal babble sword here in the town, or in the castle town of Berlin, for a nice 58,000 gold. So Ryguy checking all the shops and is heading on out here. Now there's the tower right there, which is where our main Chapter 1 enemy is going to be, but we're not quite strong enough to take them on yet. So here in the cave, we've got another chest, and it's an antidote herb, which is also not very helpful. Now, our racers are looking to find various treasures that will help them, ideally either a decent weapon or armor, or they're looking for something that they can sell for a high price so they can buy some of those items. And Ryguy taking a death and is going to be revived at the cost of half of his gold back in Berlin. And we have a Wing of Wyvern, which will allow you to travel from town to town. Ooh, and Giant Worms. They're normally a very weak enemy, but they have an Icy Gust of Wind that does triple-digit hit points of damage. And since our runners barely have double digits, that's not going to work out so well. Now, in the town of Izmit, where Game Boy and Ryguy both are here, they find the Iron Spear, which is a slight weapon upgrade. You can see the attack power now at 30. But still not really ideal for what they're looking for. A lot of what our runners are looking for are items to be able to take the enemy out fairly quickly. Whether it's, well, ideally it's either an Abacus of Virtue, maybe an Aeolus Shield, but nothing seems to be available. Meanwhile, we have a level up here, a couple levels here for Game Boy, jumping up to level 4 now, and you can see a lot of statistic gains, especially hit points, which is good to be able to endure some of the damage. Meanwhile, VaeluV now taking a death to a Stag Beetle. Now, Ryguy is talking to that kid at night here, so it kind of gives a bit of a clue as to how to normally access the tower. Now, I've noticed here that Ragnar, he is actually, well, he is the vanilla character here. But what our runners are looking to do, since they weren't able to find anything quickly, is they are, well, they're looking to find out, okay, that there's apparently this secret well that has this item called the Flying Shoes, which in the vanilla version of the game, you would use to access that tower as it's surrounded by a moat of water. But here, it's accessible, but it's still an item. But in order to find some more potential items here, well, you find out that this guy in Izmit who knows a little bit about the children and where they dwell is this guy Alex, and his wife Flora is in Berlin. Alex has gone missing. It turns out that he was put in jail in Izmit. So, upon finding this out, his wife Flora, well, she wants to go there. She wants to, you know, basically take me to where my husband is. So you escort her along, and then he'll let you know, okay, here's where the secret well is, where the children dwell. So that is what Gameboy is doing at the moment. Ryguy, meanwhile, is looking to explore some of the treasure chests that are in the tower. It's known as Lock Tower, L-O-C-H. Finding a wing of wyvern and a little bit of gold. All told, there are 6 treasure chests in this particular tower. So Gameboy getting the access. It's a trigger point to access the well, where you find out that it is 4 steps south and 4 steps east of the signpost, which sometimes it gets put in some interesting locations, and you see there it's kind of just hanging out there in the middle of the water, but Gameboy able to access it. Now there's 5 treasures to be found down in the bottom of the old well here, 2 of them in these pots. Wing of wyvern that is used for traveling. There's those flying shoes, so that'll allow you to just soar up into the air from wherever you are and land on the top floor of the tower. So Gameboy exploring now more of the well, and is also going to get a non-playable character down there. The vanilla version of the game, it's a character Healy, which is a healer who, well, it's like the it's like those healer enemies that you're used to facing. But this one aspires to be human, but the non-playable characters are also randomized. And Gameboy just steps away, and oh, that is a lot of giant worms that just got called up, and Gameboy not able to get away, but does the second time. So we're going to see which of the random non-playable characters. It's going to be Lucia, who you normally see in Chapter 5. But she is scaled down in this case here. Meanwhile, VaeluV has Flora as well, but is opting to search in the tower, but takes a death. So at this point, our runners are looking to get strong enough to be able to take on the boss that has been kidnapping these kids. It's known as Sarrow's Shadow. As we have a little bit more leveling here for Gameboy. Still at level 1, although well, not able to level up there with the Prank Gopher. It looks like VaeluV is going to go with some grinding, but not against that many enemies. And Ryguy looking to bolster the equipment. And is now going to explore the rest of the tower. So they're hoping for some sort of an item. Well, there's an agility seed that'll help bump up the agility a little bit, but that's pretty much about it. Just means you might be able to attack faster during battle. And meanwhile, Gameboy finding a strength seed down in the well. That does pretty much what you think it does. It will increase his strength by anywhere from 1 to 3 points. So that means you're a little more powerful. So Ryguy, it looks like, is... Well, I thought he was going to make a run for Sarrow's Shadow, but is instead just perhaps looking for a battle or two to maybe get a little bit stronger, and yep, does just that here. So now up to level 3 as well as 4. And Gameboy finding the lunch, which works just like a medical herb, it heals your hit points a little bit toward max. So this is an unintended grind. Usually there are ways, and some of our runners, they tend to kind of go for it a little bit early. They may not necessarily be ready, but since the abilities are randomized, we have seen bosses who, well, they'll throw a Wing of Wyvern and disappear. We've seen them cast various spells to just, we've seen bosses run away in some instances. So Ryguy getting a couple of levels here and is going to be the first to the Sorrow Shadow boss here in Chapter 1. Usually for a randomizer run with these flags, anything 15 minutes and below is pretty ideal for the first chapter. And you can see there, Sorrow Shadow gone, Ragnar working on the eyeball, but oh, it has the ability where it gets scared and starts giving some critical hits, and that takes out Ryguy, who is, I believe, going to immediately head back to the tower and going to try again here. So Ryguy hoping for similar luck here, but Sorrow Shadow opting to attack, casting Ice Bolt, which does about 10 to 15 hit points of damage, and taking another death is Ryguy. Now, in watching them play, Gameboy tends to be a little bit more on the conservative side. He'll get those extra levels before taking a fight. Ryguy, he's a little bit more on the risky side. Even if he's under-leveled, he'll take that fight in the hopes that something wonky will happen. And that's probably why he is by far the top runner. But, well, that's why it is randomized. What is going to happen. So, Ryguy heading back in for a third attempt, I believe. Maybe gonna... And in the tower doing a little bit of searching as well. And is going to go for this 6 Demon Toadstool battle here. No spells to take out the group. Okay, maybe he realizes this might be a little bit more than... biting off a little bit more than he can chew here. So VaeluV going to pick up Lucia as well. Well, the fake Healy, but is actually Lucia. And Ryguy going to go for Sorrow Shadow once again. And this time around, changing the strategy up and taking out that giant eyeball is when it looks scared. Well, it can either be on guard or it can attack with some critical hits. Plus, the defense tends to go up, and that is not what he's looking for here, and he's probably going to end up taking another death, and does so. VaeluV in the middle of a rather cumbersome battle here as the Somna Beetles, they have the spell of Farewell, which they basically sacrifice themselves to revive everybody else. And Ryguy now is going to go and, knowing him as well as I do, reluctantly go get the non-playable character. So it seems that the rando, because this is a marathon, being a little bit less generous in terms of the items that are being given. I mean, the seeds do not really sell for a whole lot. The weapons, there's no astonishing weapon. I mean, we have seen some late endgame weapons and armor in some of these treasure chests and search spots, but that is not to be here today. So now Game Boy is going to give his first crack at Sorrow's Shadow and the Giant Eyeball. And at level 7, with all that hit points, able to tank it, is able to take out the Giant Eyeball. So this might be a potential lead here for Game Boy if he can take out Sorrow's Shadow. Lucia chanting defense, that certainly helps as well, as that lowers the defense of Sorrow's Shadow. Oh, and that heal spell certainly coming into play. Lucia passing, though. Now it's just, alright, who can outlast here? Oh, Game Boy going to use a medical herb. He's got another one here. Gonna leave down to the last one. And Game Boy takes out Sorrow's Shadow. As VaeluV now working on the Shadow as well. So Game Boy has rescued the kids. He's going to head back to the town of Izmit, return the kids to their worried parents, and then is going to head back to Berlin Castle to receive the accolades from the king. Use the Wing of Wyvern here to save a little bit of time traveling to Izmit, having to avoid the cave. And VaeluV not too far behind. Alright, so the kids are celebrating. Game Boy going to wing back to Berlin here. VaeluV, it looks like, does not have a wing, so is going to make the trek through the cave connecting Berlin and Izmit. So in Chapter 1 of 5 here, Game Boy is going to be the first out at a little over 15 minutes. Now, one of the things that the king gives is some experience for you, so those levels are going to shoot up. And that is something that our runners are going to want to pay attention to, as well, they're going to kind of focus and key in on 4 of the party members that they're going to want to use for the final battle. So they're going to pay attention to how much strength, how many hit points the characters have, as well as any potential spells for spellcasters. So Game Boy is out here, so about 15 and a half minutes in to the race here. Game Boy is the first out of Chapter 1. Not too far behind is VaeluV, and Ryguy still working on it here. Now in Chapter 2, normally you would play as Alina, the tomboyish princess. In this case, it is played by Christo, the Chancellor, who is one of the advisors. You can see there the kind of double doppelganger there, I suppose. And Bray, who is Alina's tutor. So this is your first chance to work with spellcasters, as Alina is, in the vanilla game, well, just somebody who hits hard, carries a few weapons here and there. And the drops are not very good at all here, at least in the early going. And then you'd have the spellcasters. Christo, normally more of a healing, I guess, white mage, for lack of a better term. And Bray, more of a, an attack magic caster, usually in the realm of various frost spells. But with the spells all being randomized, now Game Boy going to head on over and see what is purchasable. Ooh, Sword of Lethargy. That is something that our runners are going to keep a rather noted eye on, is when you equip the Sword of Lethargy and attack with it, you have a 33% chance of putting your opponent to sleep. So ideally, you'll want 2, maybe 3 characters, if they're able to equip the Sword of Lethargy. You'll want that for the final battle, as that'll make it considerably easier, just being able to sleep lock the final boss, and that'll make it so much smoother. So yeah, 2,200 gold for the Sword of Lethargy, not too bad. Now the tomboyish princess, well, she doesn't like just sitting on the throne. She wants to go out and do things, so that's why she snuck out here and found a flimsy board in her room to be able to do so. And she finds this town that, well, is sacrificing young girls to this monster here, the chameleon. The chameleon humanoid. So you offer your services to basically be one of the litter that is delivered to the monster here, and well, your goal is to take it out. Along with the hilarious pun by the shaman here, don't ever litter the litter. Gets me every time. So VaeluV hot on the heels of Game Boy here. And one of the characters passing on Game Boy's side is now here comes the battle as well. And Ryguy, meanwhile, has taken out Sara's Shadow in Chapter 1. And will be a few minutes behind, but there are plenty of different ways to be able to catch up. A nice crit on VaeluV's part there to take out one of the added enemies there. And Game Boy falls to the chameleon humanoid. VaeluV looking to try to take it out and does so. So just like that, VaeluV takes the lead here. A question in chat, why does everyone have he and him after their name? One of the notations is the various runners' pronouns. Whether it be he, him, she, her, they, them. That is something that has grown over the course of the past year and a half, 2 years, I would say, over the course of various marathons, runs, and things of that nature. So Game Boy gonna go for the second attempt at the chameleon humanoid here. Meanwhile, well, it gives quite a bit of experience, so a lot of menuing for the various level ups. As you can see, up to level 7 are the Bray, Christo, and Hero in this case here. That's why you have the different names. There are 8 characters overall. I mentioned Ragnar, who played in the vanilla version, or the vanilla version here of Chapter 1. You have Alina, Christo, and Bray, which hilariously Christo and Bray are part of Chapter 2. You have the Hero, which you normally would find in Chapter 5. There's Taloon, who is the merchant, who we'll encounter in Chapter 3 in a little bit here. And then you have Nara and Mara, the sisters, who normally battle in Chapter 4, and we'll get to that along the way here. So, after finding the chameleon humanoid, well, the next step for our runners here is they're looking for more adventure. So what our runners are doing at this point here is they're looking to get some more items and weapons and armor and things of that nature. But there's also a town nearby that's it's known as Freenor, where they're all excited because the princess has arrived. Except, wait a minute, you're the princess, so what's going on here? Turns out there's an imposter. The princess gets kidnapped, and they're looking for this item called the Golden Bracelet, which is being held ransom in the cave that VaeluV is entering here. Now, in the vanilla version of the game, well, look at that. The first chest there is the Golden Bracelet. So you would then meet them out in the back of the inn at night, and you would trade in the Golden Bracelet for their freedom, and for their gratitude, the imposter princess would give you the Thief's Key, which allows you access to the Birdsong Tower. Now, while they were in the desert town, the bazaar there was a merchant, or not a merchant, there was a servant to the king who had said that there's an issue back home. And, well, that issue is that the king apparently is having trouble speaking. Yeah, it says the king is in trouble. So the issue is, well, the king has lost his voice, got some laryngitis going on. Which, at the rate I'm going over the course of the next 3 hours, I may end up suffering the same fate. We'll find out here. But apparently the way to cure said laryngitis is with an item called the Birdsong Nectar, as Game Boy now finding, oh, there's the princess being kidnapped. Well, the fake princess. And they run away, and we see there's a little interesting thing with the sprites. Our characters for this randomizer are, well, they are using a flag called double walking speed, so that unfortunately makes for some interesting glitches that occur over the course of the run. And you can see that the 2 other characters trailing behind in the cave here. So our runners are looking through the cave. They're hoping to find the birdsong nectar here in the cave, where normally it isn't. It's in the birdsong tower, but if they're able to find that birdsong nectar ahead of time, it's just another time-saving thing. But because we're in a marathon here, of course it's going to be in the furthest point from where our runners are looking. Rando gonna rando. The game knows. So another level here for Game Boy. VaeluV is traversing the cave and is now heading on out. Is Game Boy gonna dig deep and not be too thrilled with what he finds here? And Ryguy heading into that cave as well. It's normally known as the cave south of Freenor, but because the overworld map is randomized, it could pretty much be anywhere on the island. Thank you. I appreciate the kudos here. It is definitely a challenge trying to keep track and commentate at the same time here, all while fighting a cold as well. It's certainly a challenge. But some gold deep in the cave there, which our runners are going to use to hopefully buy some better weapons and armor as the next kind of giving a little bit of a catch-up ahead here as VaeluV now rescuing the princess and is going to get that thief's key, so VaeluV will eventually be heading into that birdsong tower to get the birdsong nectar. Once our runners get that birdsong nectar, they're going to go back to Killian Castle where they started, administer the nectar to the king, and the king will talk about the horrible nightmares that he had, and basically about how the world is going to end, and how there's this bad guy Necrosaro, which we'll find out a little bit more about later. And that's all of a sudden his voice just stopped working. So he realizes, okay, there's definitely some danger afoot, and I'm no longer going to hold you back. Go ahead, run amok, princess. Be the adventurer that we know that you want to be, and gives you his blessing. So the next step after that is, well, there's this tournament going on in the castle town of Endor, which is going to be focused on very heavily over the course of a couple of chapters. And in Endor, there is a tournament going on, a gladiator-style tournament in a large arena. And, well, the winner of said tournament gets the king's daughter's hand in marriage, gets to marry the princess. And the king, well, is having second thoughts about that, so, at least in the vanilla version, since Alina is a female princess, and back in this time of lore, females were not allowed to marry females, that's the loophole that the king is looking for. Is, alright, if I can get a woman to win the tournament, she won't be able to marry my daughter. A question in chat as far as which runner is winning right now. At the moment, VaeluV is in the lead. It's a slight lead, but it is a lead nonetheless, and the lead will more than likely change hands quite a bit, especially once we get into Chapter 5, that is the most open of the chapters. Chapters 1 through 4 are very linear. They all have kind of the subplot stories that lead to all the characters converging together in the 5th chapter, but once we're probably about 10% of the way into Chapter 5, well, that's when the paths will diverge, and I will slowly start to lose my mind kind of trying to keep track of everything. But for the moment, VaeluV has acquired the birdsong nectar and got the permission from the king to run amok, and has gone through the travel door here and is now in the castle town of Endor. And Game Boy has done the same and is looking to head on back here. At least I believe so. And Ryguy, meanwhile, falling to some enemies here and is attempting to catch up here after taking out the chameleon humanoid. To answer the question in chat, what is this speed glitch? It is a double walking speed. It is a flag that you can use in the Dragon Warrior 4 Randomizer, but it creates some interesting sprite glitches. We'll leave it at that. And High Spirit's one of the admins here, noting that the speed hacks will cause more problems if you play on a Nintendo Flash Cart, which will literally break the game on several occasions. So now Ryguy is going to acquire the Thief's Key, so he'll be able to have access to the Birdsong Tower, but is taking a look and seeing about improving the equipment, mainly for Bray's character, because as VaeluV is shown here, VaeluV has gotten the okay from the King of Endor to compete in the tournament, and now is going to do so and hope to take on 5 different competitors and take them out. And only one other person, that aforementioned Necrostar, was the only one to take out 5 different opponents. So we have the first one here, who is Hun. And already VaeluV in a little bit of trouble here, but is able to take out Hun. Gets a level, but is very low on hit points at the moment. I didn't see if he has... Okay, he has a medical herb, and is going to use it here. And now the second, Rorik, who has a boomerang and is not afraid to use it. Meanwhile, well, VaeluV has a Staff of Thunder, which that works just like the Firebane spell, so it can attack a group of enemies, but it also, yeah, it'll do damage of somewhere in the 30 to 40 range, and is able to take out Rorik and gets a medical herb as a gift, very timely. And now takes on the third opponent, Vivian, who, well, we'll see if Vivian provides more of a challenge here. The Staff of Thunder making pretty good work of the enemies so far here. And Vivian's taken out, and there's another medical herb. And another level as well. Now, in the vanilla version of the game, you don't get experience for taking out these enemies here. Okay, the hero is was the initial character. I missed that in the beginning here. I thought it was Christo. So now we have Samson, which is a hard-hitting knight. Is Gameboy taking a reset here? Probably looking to save to get rid of some of the technical glitches that are going on here. And takes out Samson, and now here comes a very meme-worthy character here in Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest IV, Lingwar. Lingwar is an enemy that, well, right in the offset here, it splits into 4. And it's pretty much like the old Shell game. Which one is the real one and which one is imposter? So it's a little bit of a guessing game. So ideally, I'd mentioned earlier the Aeolus Shield. That's an item that a lot of our runners like to use, as it's an AoE attack. Meaning that it takes on all of the enemies regardless of whether or not they're in a group or separate. Those are the type of ideal ways to take out the Lingwar, is with an Aeolus Shield, maybe a spell like Lightning. And yeah, Lingwar hitting pretty hard on VaeluV. And now looking through the spells, not really finding anything ideal, and this, okay, tried using Zap and it hit the Mirage instead. Actually, probably a better example, for those who remember it, in Superman 2, where Superman in the near-final battle with General Zod had split up into 4 different things. One of them was real, the others were imposters. Oh, Richard Lester, why did you do those crazy effects? But it's random each time, and that makes it a little more difficult here with each battle. So Ryguy has now made it to Endor and is checking out the various items that are available. VaeluV still having not so good luck trying to pick the right enemy each. It's a 25% chance each time. Meanwhile, Gameboy has acquired the Birdsong Nectar and is going to get permission from the king to venture out. But first has to hit that trigger point of, it's terrible the king can't speak. Yes, Richard Lester did direct A Hard Day's Night, so I mean there is that, but when he, when you have a comedy director directing an action movie, well, alright, that's a whole nother discussion for another day. Give me a follow, we'll have plenty of chats on that when I'm streaming. For now, though, we've got this race going on here. So, right now, VaeluV in the lead, but that lead is dwindling here as the battle with Lingwar becoming very problematic here. And Ryguy about to head on in and will be taking on the tournament as well. So, this just got a lot closer, and oh, VaeluV falling to the Lingwar, not having enough resources. So, for the moment, it's pretty much neck and neck with VaeluV and Ryguy here. And I see Cody Castle in chat here, noting they found the pattern. What are you, Michael Larson from Press Your Luck? Another dated reference. Big bucks, no whammies indeed. So, Ryguy working on Rorik here. VaeluV going after Hun, the first of the 5 characters. So, pretty well neck and neck between Ryguy and VaeluV, and Gameboy not too far behind. Although so far the whammy of this seed looks to be Lingwar, as it's provided some troubles for VaeluV, and we'll see how Ryguy does once he gets past Samson here. And Gameboy, being in the castle town of Endor, well, is not too far behind, and he's just moments away from also going into battle with the 5 tournament opponents. And now here's Ryguy's first crack at Lingwar. And is able to hit a zap. Oh no, it doesn't work on the Lingwar. Pick the right one, but the spell did not take effect. Very unfortunate with that zap, that zap spell, that lightning type spell that hits one enemy. And Gameboy now in the tournament green room, and will also be taking on the tournament here. So this has just gotten extremely close, as we're almost 36 minutes in, and it is neck and neck, because it's 3 runners. And Gameboy getting a level here, and Ryguy running low on resources here with his Lingwar battle, and VaeluV right there as well. And Gameboy just a couple of battles behind, so at this point, it all comes down to, well, VaeluV has done it here and has taken out Lingwar, so now they're looking for Necrosaro, the only other competitor to defeat the 5 opponents, but because Necrosaro is nowhere to be found, you win by default. So, now you get told to return to the Santeem Castle immediately, head on back home. And Christo with the return spell, that is going to be huge, and that's going to help all of our racers here, as that's one less thing of inventory that you have to worry about in Chapter 5, is those Wings of Wyvern. You can just utilize that return spell, and, well, VaeluV wondering, where has everybody gone? The castle is empty. And with that, well, what happened to those people? We'll find out later. Same dragon time, same dragon channel. But that'll end Chapter 2, so VaeluV in the lead here, and now we're going to go to Chapter 3, playfully known as Capitalism the Chapter. Yeah, you are Taloon the Merchant, and, okay, it's vanilla here. Alright, so you're playing as Taloon the Merchant, and your goal, as opposed to beating some sort of a boss or rescuing some sort of people, no, you're greedy. You're just trying to make money. You're just trying to be the best salesman in the world. You're trying to build an empire. You're basically trying to be Amazon. You're the Amazon of Dragon Warrior 4. But you gotta start somewhere. Normally in the vanilla game, you for a boss and you toil and things of that nature. But here, nope. There's better ways to make quicker money. Like going into this cave here and finding a late-game weapon, the Ice Blade. So that's helpful for two reasons. One, it's got a lot of attack power if you're able to equip it. Actually, a couple more reasons. Two, if you use it as an item, it works just like one of the frozen spells. Oh, this is a little bit of a glitch that VaeluV is able to take care of here, having that double walking speed. And thirdly, if you aren't able to equip it, well, it sells for a lot of money. Now, VaeluV heading on down here, and in the vanilla version of the game, this chest contains an iron safe, which if our runners come across it here in this chapter, what the iron safe does is if you take a death, you don't lose half your gold. Gameboy, meanwhile, is heading on into the casino that is in Endor, and, well, it's great for leisure, but we're racing. We don't have time to gamble, but occasionally you can utilize the coins in there and use it to purchase items and maybe make a little bit of money off of it. Ryguy, meanwhile, has completed Chapter 2 and is now a couple of minutes behind VaeluV here. So after getting those items, normally there's a little side quest where you have to deal with this bridge builder, Degardi. Because normally the bridges are out. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger in True Lies. The bridge is out! But in this case, they picked a flag where the bridges are able to be crossed ahead of time. They are built. So normally you have this side quest where you have to rescue one of your town's residents who happen to be in jail in this castle here that VaeluV's in, Bamalmo, and then once you rescue him, you can borrow his dog, and the dog loves hunting foxes, and there's this whole town that, well, is full of foxes, and it takes advantage of people, including Degardi, who's hanging out there, but that takes too much time, so this flag, that's all skipped. You don't have to worry about that. Just make sure you don't go into Foxville, as, well, that'll just, take a little extra time, because the only way to get out of Foxville is to spend the night, and all of a sudden, the whole town disappears. So instead, well, you've got access to Endor Castle. Now, here in Bamalmo, the king, he's trying to have a hostile takeover. So the prince says, here, meet me here at night, and I've got this letter here that is for my girlfriend, the Princess of Endor. So this is something that didn't exactly happen in Chapter 2. And basically the letter says, hey, my dad wants to take out your dad's castle. That's gonna not help out well with our whole being in love. What should we do about that? And the king overhears it and says, oh, well, this is news to me here, and VaeluV is gonna read the letter to the princess. And pretty much a Cliff Notes version of it here, because they were kind of, they were secret lovers. So now the secret's out. So now the king, well, he gives a royal scroll, which you then read to the king of Bamalmo, that says, hey, it turns out that your son and my daughter are in love. So eventually they're going to marry, and the king of Bamalmo says, oh, cool, I don't have to use war to take out Endor. I can just rule as an in-law. So thank you, Tulun, for that, and you can be on your merry way. So in gratitude for stopping the war before it starts, the king grants you permission to own a shop in the town of Endor, which is, it's the hub, it's the hustle and bustle place. But owning your own shop, it's not cheap. So there's an old man who is looking to sell a shop, but at the cost of 35,000 gold. Told you it wasn't cheap. So where the heck are you going to get that kind of money? Well, it turns out that in this cave that Ryguy and VaeluV are currently traversing, there is this item called a silver statuette that this rather eccentric collector, oh, there's the iron safe, VaeluV finding that, but this rather eccentric collector, he wants that silver statuette bad. He's willing to pay 25,000 gold to do so, to acquire it from you. Now, in addition, there's a flag that is used here, again, for purpose of ease, so that way we're not here all night. And normally in the vanilla version of the game, it costs 35,000 gold for that particular shop, but here, it's on discount. It's only 25,000. So what our runners are doing is they're also collecting items in the cave that they can then use. Once you own your own shop, you can bring your wife and kid on over from the town of Laknabo, where you started, to the castle town of Endor, and your wife will set up shop for you while you're exploring. And how she does it, I don't know, maybe she's using a certain type of appeal, I don't know, but she gets people to buy at 150% of its standard cost. How she does it, boggles my mind, but she'll be able to do that and slowly get you a bunch of money, and what that bunch of money is going to do is it's going to get you the opportunity to explore some other vast lands. There's a man in a cave that, well, the cave isn't going very far, but wants to be able to dig and do some excavating, easy for me to say, to be able to get to the other side where there's another bit of land, but, well, is getting old and is, ran out of resources to be able to do so. So, for 60,000 gold, well, he'll be able to get the digging process back up and running and be able to get you on over to the other side. So you're looking to make that 60,000 gold by selling all that stuff at insane markups. Now, Game Boy, it's been a little bit of time since he's played this. I know he's done some developing. He also is the developer of Dragon Warrior 2 Randomizer and Dragon Warrior 3 Randomizer. So I don't know if he's aware that this side quest is no longer required. So that's going to probably set him back a little bit here. So he's completing Chapter 3 a little bit more of the proper way. VaeluV, meanwhile, is back in Endor and is going to find that eccentric individual and is 25,000 gold richer. And didn't even have to climb Dick Clark's pyramid to do so. Yeah, Game Boy just wanted Tav the dog, who is god of Dragon Warrior 4. And as a fun aside, Tav the dog is also a playable sprite in the Dragon Warrior 1 randomizer race. So now, it's a little bit of kind of a back and forth here that VaeluV is going through. He has handed off the items that was in his inventory. Netta sells them at, holy cow, at 150% markup, and just you can see there, made 94,000 gold overnight. Because the prices are insane. It's like Crazy Eddie back in the day. So there's the 60,000 gold to be able to get the excavation. VaeluV is going to exit and re-enter the cave to show, yep, the excavation is starting. That 60,000 gold wasn't wasted at the casino, which, by the way, is closed in Chapter 3, so you don't try to make money that way. And if you happen to have any leftover gold and try to exploit the casino, well, good luck, as each of the casino tokens costs 200 gold. Because they figure, well, you've got a lot more money. So VaeluV is going to use the last little bit of money here to buy some items that can be utilized for Chapter 5. Ooh, a Sword of Miracles. That is not a bad find at all, as that's a late game, very high-powered weapon that when you attack with it, it also heals some of your hit points. And yes, when it comes to inventory management in the game, it's time-consuming. So a lot of times, instead of just selling something off, they'll just drop it. They'll discard it. Away with this broadsword. I know, I'm not a fan of it either, but that's why I'm not speedrunning this, and instead I'm commentating. That and because I probably play slow enough that I would take up the rest of the marathon here for questing for Glory 3. But with that, VaeluV, 48 minutes in, is out of Chapter 3. 2 more chapters to go. Now we have the Sisters of Munbaraba. One of which looks to be, I believe that's vanilla here, as we have Nara and Mara, 2 sisters. One's a dancer, the other's a fortune teller. And they're looking for revenge on Balzac, who killed their father. No, none of them are named Inigo Montoya. But it looks like here we have Alina as one of the characters this time around, and Mara as the other. So, by process of elimination, I believe that means that Nara, the fortune teller, will be the quote-unquote hero of Chapter 5. It's a B-A-L-Z-A-C-K, for those wondering as far as the spelling. So, early on, looking for hopefully some spells in the case of Nara, as well as some decent items. There are a couple of search spots there. But now it's off to venture to get stronger and hopefully also find an accomplice, as one of their father's pupils, as their father was an alchemist. One of their father's pupils happens to be in this deep cave, and you can acquire him. His name is Orin. Orin, if you're playing the more recent version, the Nintendo DS version, I believe he's known as Oojam, O-O-J-A-M in that version. And he'll help you along as far as battling. Now, there were a couple of NPCs in Chapter 3 that, if you want to, you can hire for 5 days. You can hire their services to help excavate the cave, or help spelunk it, I suppose. Let's see, VaeluV, meanwhile, is going to pull up a magic potion that restores some of your MP. Not exactly what he was looking for. So yes, there's a lot going on. I'm doing my best to keep track of all of it, as there are 3 different screens going on. Ryguy has now entered Chapter 4. Gameboy trailing a little bit behind with acquiring the dog, but is looking to get lots of money here. So VaeluV, well, one of the enemies created some poison effect, and is hoping here to keep Mara alive. Utilizes a medical herb, and acquired a Chapter 5 item here in Chapter 4, the Sage's Stone, which when used in battle, it works just like the Heal Us spell. It'll heal all of your party members roughly 80 to 100 hit points. So utilizing it here, and well, there's a Scorching Breath which can paralyze here, and well, VaeluV looking to get out of there and not have the kill. Both of your runners are paralyzed or worse yet, deceased. Well, then you start on over from where the last point is that you saved. Okay, so VaeluV utilizing an intentional battle there just to be able to use the Sage's Stone to heal Mara up. But barely able to get away, and now, well, got some troubles here. Alina gonna use the Life Force Nuts, which adds 6 to the max hit points, and well, for every 4 steps that you walk, you lose a hit point when you're poisoned, and not enough here to keep Mara alive. But enough to get to the non-playable character. And it's Hector, who you normally see in Chapter 5. Yeah, Hector you find very early in Chapter 5, and we'll get a little bit more into that once we get closer to there. We'll probably hit that point maybe about 10 to 15 minutes from now, I'd say, depending on how the chapter goes here. VaeluV doing a little bit more exploring of the cave here, west of your hometown of Kiev's. Now, Mumbarba is where you started, but Kiev's is your hometown. And you're looking to get stronger and take on that enemy Balzac, who currently is in Killian Castle. But how are you going to access this king that is here, or this enemy that is hidden in this kingdom? Well, it turns out that the Chancellor of that castle, he'll be able to kind of lead you to him unintentionally, or lead you to the enemy, thanks to that item that was just found there by VaeluV, the gunpowder jar. It's just a little something that makes a loud noise, and that scares the Chancellor to running into where that secret hideout is. And yes, this is certainly an interesting game to speedrun, and one that I wouldn't have thought of either, but the way these flags are set up, I mean, you can generally finish a seed. Well, some of our better runners here, they'll be able to do so in under 3.5 hours. I think my personal best is just under 4 hours, but I've only played a handful of these. Game Boy finally out of Chapter 3. But by no means is he out of this, as the exploration... Oh yeah, the Gleaming Icy Wind. That is pretty much an insta-kill at this point of the game. It's pretty much an insta-kill for most points of the game. But with the enemy abilities randomized, you can run into it anywhere. Game Boy seeing the leather hat in the drawer, which is a rather marginal defensive helmet. It gives you 2 additional defense points. And Ryguy has acquired the non-playable character. Meanwhile, VaeluV has used the Chancellor. He is running scared and heads on into the secret spot. Oh, look, there's a button. When you push it, it opens the door, and there is Balzac. Along with a couple of friends, a Pteranodon and a Bangler. And I'm not sure how well this is going to go here, as Mara has taken a death. Hector, who has nothing to do but attack, well, is surrounded, meaning that there's a lot of mirages, so more than likely we'll miss than not. And Game Boy here early in the chapter, doing the exploration in the cave, gets that Sage's Stone. Yes, the waves that remove any abilities that normally you would see just with the final boss Necrosaro in Chapter 5. Well, you occasionally see that here as well, with different enemies. So in this case it was a bit of a help, but Balzac a little too strong here for VaeluV, gonna take a death, gonna have to revive the other 2 characters, and may either do a little bit of leveling up, may try to see if there's some other weapons and items. Our runners have completely avoided thus far the Actemto mine, where the mines There have been some chicanery going on there, and that's also where you would normally get the gunpowder jar. So Game Boy now has the non-playable character as well. And depending on how this boss goes here in Chapter 4, this could be a bit of a roadblock that'll allow all of our runners to even things out here as we approach the hour mark of this race. For those of you just joining, I'm from Burgundy. We're here for this three-person race of Dragon Warrior 4 Randomizer between Gameboyf9, Ryguy3745, and VaeluV here on RPG Limit Break as part of Questing for Glory 3. And yes, chat, thank you so much for the decorum that is being presented here. So, Ryguy currently in the town of Haville, or Hayville. There are three weapon and armor shops there, which could allow for some additional equipment, although we'll see what is available here. And a question in chat: are they trying to finish the whole game in this time frame? Yes, they are, and they're also trying to finish it faster than their two opponents. So, given the flag set, it usually is about a 3 to 3.5 hour seed. It's been a little bit less than generous in the early going, but I think they should still meet that particular time constraint here. So VaeluV going to go back in here for the Chapter 4 boss. And yes, the Metal Babble Shield is available for purchase. That's one of the randomized things. You don't know what's going to necessarily be in there, and I think we've seen Metal Babble Sword. I think we saw Metal Babble Shield already. Well, yes, we have. Not sure about the helm or armor, but those could potentially be for sale as well. They're just usually rather pricey, as they are some of the best items in the game. Some of the strongest weaponry and some of the most defensive items, respectively. So Ryguy now going to scare off the Chancellor. As Game Boy looking to level up here. At least in terms of levels, pretty slight lead for Ryguy and VaeluV. They're kind of neck and neck. Oh, and there's the surround spell. That is not good for Ryguy here. But is able to utilize that Sword of Lethargy and put the boss to sleep, so that's certainly helpful. Oh, and a nice crit for Ryguy, and that takes out the boss. Now just has to take care of those two underlings there, and Ryguy may just take the lead here, but VaeluV working on that boss as well, so it's hard to say. Oh, and able to call for help from some other enemies. In this case, there's a healer. They usually are problematic, but he's able to take this one out here. So who will take out the bosses first? VaeluV working on the big one. Ryguy just having to deal with the Pteranodon. Oh, this is neck and neck. And VaeluV gonna take out the boss first. Ryguy having trouble with the surrounding here. So VaeluV is going to be the first into Chapter 4, or Chapter 5 rather, but nipping at his heels is Ryguy, who just takes out the Pteranodon as well. So all told, depending on the levels here, there's probably about a 25 to 30 second differential between the two. Maybe not even that. So here comes Killian, who is kind of the real boss here. This is an unwinnable battle. If for some reason something wonky happens and you were to win, it would just restart the battle, because the game would not know what to do. But as you're thrown in jail here, you find this boarding pass, which will allow you to hop on a ship that is heading out of Haville, and, well, it'll allow you to sail on to continue your quest and try to find that hero and those other individuals that are looking to help save the world. So VaeluV gonna hop on the ship here. You can see right on his tail is Ryguy, so it's going to be very close between these two heading into the 5th and final chapter here. But it's going to come down to the searching and the RNG. Yes, to answer the question in chat, there is a double walking speed patch that's on this here. But that does create some interesting effects, to say the least. I'm wondering if Ryguy had to pause to take care of a little bit of business here, as sometimes tends to occur when in a racing scenario. But all told, is currently about 30 seconds behind VaeluV at the moment. So now here in Chapter 5, you're the hero, or at least you're groomed to be the hero. But need a little bit more training, and uh-oh, the bad guys have found you. So they go to hide you, and your childhood friend, well, looks to, well, use the spell of Transform to make a copy of you, and basically sacrifices herself for your well-being, because you are the one who is going to save the world. And we see in that jar there was a Hat of Happiness. That'll help a little bit with the defense. And there's a Mysterious Bolero, which is a rather nice and expensive armor, but not able to equip it here. So your goal here in Chapter 5 is to meet up with your other heroes that we've run into along the way, your other companions, and team up all 8 of you to take on the final boss, Necrosaro, and save the world. So you see here, heading back to Endor, I told you it was the hub. There is Nara reading a fortune, and just like that, well, we've got our second party member. And Nara's sister Mara is in the casino, gambling away all their money. Slot machines, they're a ripoff. So we've got Nara, Bray, and Taloon to start things off here with Chapter 5. So Taloon's going to use the ability as a merchant. Taloon's able to appraise the items here, and now let's see. The Sword of Lethargy. Oh wow, none of the three of them are able to equip it. Oof. So Ryguy now is acquiring the third party member. Meanwhile, Gameboy working on the fight in Chapter 4 here. And this is where there's a little inventory management here, just to see who can equip what based off of the items that you carried over from the respective chapters into this final chapter. So ultimately what they're looking to do as they're heading along, in order to move further, well, they're going to need a wagon to be able to make their way through things further and allow for more party members here, because due to the game's programming, well, you only have 4 members on screen at a time. So in order to do that, there's this man named Hector who operates this desert inn and happens to have a horse-drawn wagon that you'd like to be able to borrow, but Hector, well, he follows Stone Cold Steve Austin's mantra, DTA, don't trust anybody. So you gotta find a way to earn his trust. So there's a cave that has this item called the Symbol of Faith. So you're gonna acquire that, but in doing so, well, you're gonna have to test your own faith and trusting abilities and things of that nature. Yes, you would have never thought that you have gotten a Press Your Luck game show reference and a Stone Cold Steve Austin pro wrestling reference in this particular commentary. You're welcome. So, Ryguy here back in Bon Malmo, and one thing that our runners tend to do early on... Oh yeah, the Superman 2 reference as well. You're absolutely right, CD Improv. One thing that our runners like to do is they want to acquire a lot of the Wing of Wyvern, as they can use that to travel between the various towns that they come across along the way. Makes for nice, efficient travel. So now they're going to head here to this castle town of Bronca, which is kind of your starting area here, and they're selling some of their items, and wow, that is a very inexpensive Metal Babble armor, so that's going to bolster the defense rather highly. And meanwhile, here in the woodsman's hut, there are 3 pots there that can be searched for items. There's 50 gold, there's an agility seed, and there is the medical herb on VaeluV's side. So we're not too far away from where the paths will diverge, as up to this point it's pretty well linear, and it'll be linear up to the point where our runners acquire a ship. Yes, good question in chat here. Return, otherwise known as Virgins. You're absolutely correct. So here in the Symbol of Faith cave, well, you see that you disappear and you are separated from your party members, and, well, there are imposters all over the place. So this is very much like the old game show To Tell the Truth. Will the real Nara and Mara please stand up? And VaeluV finding out here thanks to a bit of a trivia. Okay, yep, you're the real one, although they ask a yes or no question that if you get it wrong, it's a but thou must scenario where you can't mess it up. You'll eventually get the right answer because they ask the same yes-no question. So there it is. VaeluV has acquired the Symbol of Faith and is now going to take that back on over to Hector and will acquire the horse-drawn wagon along with the horse named Primrose. And yes, for more modern viewers over the course of the last 20 years, yes, you could go with the real Slim Shady, please stand up. That works too. So there is fake Hector because we saw the real Hector earlier. And now we're heading along here. It looks like it is somewhere on the western edge of the map. Well, the non-playable characters are randomized. So, in this case, it is Panin, the jester, who we'll see a little bit later in here and what role Panin has. So now VaeluV is in a lighthouse tower that, well, it's currently out. And it's creating a lot of enemies along the way, or appearances of enemies, things of that nature. So you want to be able to find an item called the Fire of Serenity, that once you defeat the enemies that are kind of guarding the lighthouse tower, you'll throw that in and that'll take away the evil fire, and just like in Pete's Dragon, you'll then be the candle on the water. Now, VaeluV has some fairy water, which is used like the repel spell, and is taking advantage of... Yes, it's taking advantage of a bit of an oversight as far as the game goes. If you have a non-playable character in your party, and you fight one battle with said non-playable character, you can then utilize the Fairy Water or Repel spell, and it will repel all overworld encounters. Okay, and I realize that a reference from 1977 is a little too much. Okay, so 42-year-old reference, too far. Got it. So here in this lighthouse we've got, okay, there's the Staff of Transform. That is an item that can unlock some other searchable chests. Basically right now we're in the beginnings of a scavenger hunt. There are 5 items that our runners are looking for. 4 of them are these various Zenithian gear. Zenithian sword, Zenithian armor, Zenithian shield, and Zenithian helmet. And then, even more essential than that, they are looking for this item called the gas canister. And just as a correction in chat, since I am a DJ by trade as well, the song that was redone for Princess Diana's funeral, that was Elton John's Candle in the Wind, as compared to Helen Reddy's Candle on the Water. But that notwithstanding, so Game Boy looking at the various items there in the town of Branca, the castle town there. VaeluV, meanwhile, is navigating through the lighthouse tower. Now, the Staff of Transform, what that's going to be used for is, well, that can turn you into various characters, whether it's, it can turn you into an animal, it can turn you into an enemy. And you want to be able to use that to kind of infiltrate this one enemy castle known as Dire Palace, which our runners are hoping to not have to get there necessarily, but they may have to try to find those 5 respective items, as VaeluV finding that Fire of Serenity, so they're going to put that into the lighthouse up top. But they're looking for the 4 pieces of Zenithian gear, and they're looking for the gas canister, which they're going to take that gas canister to a town called Riverton, and that will allow them access to a hot air balloon. Yes, like the Fifth Dimension song Up, Up, and Away, would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon? See, I said 42-year-old references were too much, and then I go and follow it up with a 50-year-old reference. Look at me go. So, now also in here, our runners are hoping to maybe find the magic key, which will open a certain type of door, and they may even come across an item called the Pedequia Seed, which are all part of various subplots to help get all the party members together. As right now you have 3 out of 8, plus you have the non-playable character from the wagon there, from the Desert Inn, where Game Boy is currently at. So a little bit more money, and Ryguy and VaeluV are pretty much even here. A slight lead here for Ryguy, finding the Magma Staff, and there's that magic key. Now, the Magma Staff is an essential item in the vanilla version of the game, as that allows you access to a particular castle. Here, not quite as essential. A lot of our runners kind of feel it as a wasteful item or an inventory slot. Well, the Broken Rocks bug, as noted in chat here, that is something that VaeluV has, and it's, well, there are various glitches. As you can see, you've got the spotted screen on Ryguy's side. That's one of the drawbacks. Game Boy, it looks like, has the Broken Rocks as well. It's one of the drawbacks to the double speed. All our runners will have to do to get rid of that is to save their game, reset, and it'll come back good as new. So Ryguy has taken out the Lighthouse Bengal, which is the guardian of that lighthouse. So after these level ups here, as there's quite a bit of leveling up, is going to go ahead and throw that Fire of Serenity in, and that'll take away the evil fire, and the lighthouse will shine brightly once again, and it'll ward off all those evil enemies. At least in theory. But the enemies won't have taken over, basically. They'll still be around, but that's about it. Oh, and VaeluV finding a Shield of Strength. That is a very nice upper tier shield that, when used in battle, it works just like the Heal More spell. So that'll heal about 80 or so hit points. Maybe closer to 100. And Nara appears to be the only one who can... So Ryguy finding it as well, opting to pick the Shield of Strength before the battle, or rather after the battle, whereas VaeluV picking it up beforehand. So Ryguy with a slight lead here. And Gameboy searching some various random searchable spots, trying to find some additional items maybe to sell, maybe some decent weapons and armor to be able to equip. It's a bit of a catch-22 is that it takes time to search those things, but if it garnishes a rather nice item, or if that's what renders out of it, then it's a risk that pays off. So it's a risk-reward type scenario. So now Ryguy back in Bronca doing a little bit more shopping now that there's some gold to be had. And is going to go ahead and upgrade some weaponry, some armory, kind of sell some of the weaker stuff, the Wayfarer's clothes, the leather hat, some of the early game stuff, and looking to get a little bit stronger here. Now that Sandglass of Regression, that is a bit of an albatross in terms of the inventory. It's just kind of sitting there. What it does is it will rewind, when you use it in battle, it rewinds time back to the beginning of that particular turn. So if somebody dies and you don't want them to, you can use that. Our runners tend to leave that alone because, well, it's a speed run. You don't want to necessarily turn back time, like the Cher song from the 80s. Alright, so after the rescue, Tulun has joined the party, and now you have watercraft. Yes, you have a ship. So this is where the up until now linear path diverges. So Ryguy is going to be traversing the land and looking for a few different places, and we'll describe what he finds along the way here. So this is Killian Castle, so he's in the area from Chapter 4. Ooh, and running into some very late-game enemies of the Swingers. No jokes, please. So the next thing that Ryguy is looking for here is ideally the town of Mintos. That one you can use jokes on, sure. That's kind of the next progression in the vanilla game, although there are a lot of different things for here, so it's going to be interesting to see. So that is the hometown where you started here. There's the castle town of Bronca. There was an island there with a searchable item, and I think, was it the Mystic Acorns that were acquired there? As now VaeluV also has the ship. Gameboy, meanwhile, is in the Lighthouse Tower. Now, thankfully, to make things a little bit easier, when the game was created here, the overworld map was actually shrunk down to a quarter of the map's size. And that's just, again, for sake of ease, because there's a lot of water that you sift through, and it's time consuming. We ain't nobody got time for that. So VaeluV now is in the Shrine of the Breaking Waves Cave. There are 3 treasure chests in here, and there's some pretty tough enemies. Meanwhile, Ryguy is in the Pedequia Seed Cave. Now, in the town of Mintos, well, one of the compatriots, well, has fallen ill and needs the Pedequia root to be able to cure what ails him. But, well, Pedequia, they're not in a very high supply. So you have to go digging through to find this Pedequia seed. You go to the castle town of Siddha, which is known for growing Pedequia. The root grows instantaneously. The land will be eventually saved, and as a token of gratitude, the king will give you the first root that grows out of Pedequia. And you can use that to grind up and give to Christo in the vanilla game. And he'll be able to be healed up, and for gratitude, well, Christo, Alina, and Bray in the party will, their party will join your party, and you'll all be working together toward that end game. Now, additionally, our runners are also looking for those pieces of Zenithian gear and the gas canister. And yeah, the double walking speed, it creates an issue with those sliding moving tiles. So things are going to be a little all over the place here as Ryguy coming up on another chest, and there are two here that VaeluV is working on. So I'm going to try to check off as we go along here what's been checked. So we've got the lunch there, that's rather marginal. We've got two chests in here. There's some gold. And an ice blade. That's a very nice weapon, so not exactly what VaeluV was looking for, but not necessarily a dud either. So there's two more chests here in the Pedequia Cave. There's some money, and the vanilla Pedequia seed. It's in its vanilla location. Look at that. See, so far we've got the island hut. I'm just kind of checking off everything that's been found. Pedequia Cave and the Shrine of Breaking Waves. Alright. So there is definitely a lot of locations to search and a lot of treasure chests to find them in. So that's where... Well, it's hard to say who will necessarily be in the lead here. So that was the castle town of Gardenburg. That'll be instrumental later in acquiring the final key, which will open any of the doors, including jail doors. There is Bunmalmo. That's where our runners will be going back on occasion here to purchase more Wings of Wyvern until they get, I believe it was Christo in the party. As Christo, I know, had the spell of return. So here we are, just over 90 minutes in, and well, we've got a divergence of paths here as Ryguy finding that Dire Palace. That's where that Staff of Transform will come in handy. And that is the town of Serene, which is part of the area in Chapter 2. And Ryguy looking for his favorite weapon, the Sword of Lethargy, and finds that Bray, Nara, and Talon are all able to equip it, and having the gold is going to immediately purchase and suit up those respective characters. So Game Boy back in the Lighthouse Tower looking to take out the Lighthouse Bengal. And VaeluV has found the town of Siddha. So this is something where VaeluV has found what Ryguy is looking for, and now Ryguy has found it. So Ryguy going to immediately bolt over to the king and is going to give him that Pedequia seed, and the screen's going to glitch again, and the seed gets planted into the field, and there's the Pedequia root. So once Mintos is found, Oh, look at that. There's Mintos right next to Soretta. Perfect timing. So that, I think, gives Ryguy a bit of a lead here, as that will allow him now, once the Pedequier route is administered, that will add 3 more characters. VaeluV now finding the town of Rivertown, or Riverton, I should say. That is, on VaeluV's side, the Small Metal King. Normally, in the game, you're searching around in those searchable spots for various small metals that you can trade into the king of that little small metal island for various items, but small metals are basically disabled in this particular version. So Hector, now leaving the party, is going to study there at Mintos. Meanwhile, there are 2 searchable items here: a bit of a dud and a full moon herb that eliminates the numb status, and a lunch, which works just like a medical herb. Oh, and we have a Zenithian shield find here in Endor. Finding it in Endor at night. Okay, so that is one of the key items that are needed here, and VaeluV finding it. I'm pretty sure that was in that Endor thing. I didn't quite see it right away, but the multiple screens here. Gameboy, meanwhile, has now acquired the ship as well. So, at least for the moment, Ragnar can equip it. Now, normally in the vanilla game, only Hero can equip the Zenithian gear. But what can be equipped is randomized. And Gameboy finding the cave south of Gardenburg, which that's also instrumental into acquiring the final key. And has also found the town of Stantia, which is instrumental in acquiring the Zenithian helm that is not randomized. So the king here in Stantia on Gameboy's screen, well, the king, he wants to be able to have people laugh. Things are bad, times are tough. The king is looking for some entertainment. So having, well, in this case, fake Panin in the group, eventually you'll have to go back to the start of Chapter 4, Mambaraba, or Mambaraba, I should say, and that is where Panin the Jester has kind of taken over since, well, the dancer, the 2 sisters, well, they're out venturing, so they're no longer there. Gotta have that entertainment somewhere. Alright, so VaeluV is in Dire Palace here, and has used that Staff of Transform to kind of find out what's going on with the meeting, and, well, doesn't have the final key, so can't break in to check those 4 treasure chests that are down there. And now VaeluV in the Cascade Cave. And thanks to a little instant replay, yes, the Zenithian shield was in the king's... essentially, the king's quarters in the town of... or in the castle town of Endor. So now Ryguy is here in Gardenburg and is going to try to set up the final key quest. So this particular person says, hey, look in this drawer, you might find something. There's nothing there, but... oh, you're accused of stealing this particular amulet. So you're allowed to prove your innocence by finding the guilty party, but as collateral, well, you have to leave one of your party members behind. So one of your party members is in jail, usually your weakest character. And now it's off to prove your innocence. So I think there's a bit of a misstep on VaeluV's part there, as he's looping back around here to get a couple of the treasure chests here. Ryguy, meanwhile, has found the town of Rosaville. Usually good for shopping, and that's about it. And right next to it is the Cascade Cave. Now, you won't be able to access the potential treasure chests in the Cascade Cave unless you have the Stone of Drought, which is in a treasure chest somewhere as well. So, Game Boy in the town of Connenberg, where you acquired the ship, and is doing a little bit of inventory management selling. Oh, and that metal babble armor is not expensive. And that's one of the best armors in the game, so Ryguy gonna go ahead and suit them all up here with it. Oh wow, all 4 party members for VaeluV are poisoned. So Chapter 5 is a very long chapter. It's pretty much longer than all 4 of the first chapters combined. But it brings all the characters together and, well, it gives a nice synopsis of everything that's going on here. So, Game Boy now finding that Cascade Cave and Rosaville as well. Ryguy trying to get away from the sea lions here. And not having a lot of luck doing so. And there's the Pedequius seed for VaeluV. So for the moment, if I had to guess, I would say that in the lead here is Ryguy. VaeluV not too far behind, but now with the exploration being everywhere, all it takes is finding one particular thing, and that could easily sway things in a racer's favor. One person finds that gas canister and is able to access the balloon. That will make exploring a lot easier, as you don't have to worry about random battles while you're in the air. So at this point, what we're looking for, great question in chat. Our runners are looking for 5 total pieces of equipment, one of which has already been found by Ryguy and VaeluV. 4 of them are the various pieces of Zenithian gear. Zenithian sword, armor, shield, and helmet. And when the hero equips all 4 of those items, they will eventually be able to go to the Castle of Zenithia up in the sky, and that will help lead them to the final battle. But in order to get access to Zenithia, they also need one other thing, and that is that gas canister, which will allow them to fly in a balloon over a completely blocked off area by mountains, so you can't walk your way there or sail your way there. The only way you can get in is by air. So Gameboy finding Mintos here. So yeah, at this point it's a bit of a scavenger hunt, and there are quite a few different places that it can be in. I mean, there's various treasure chests all throughout. I'd say all told, probably, give or take, about 40 or so treasure chests that they're looking for in various spots. Some of which you need certain things to access, like the final key. Some of them you need the ship to access. Some of them you need a certain item, like the Staff of Transform, as we saw earlier, or the Stone of Drought, which has yet to be acquired. Now, the Zenithian helmet is always going to be in the same spot, and that is in the castle here of Stancia, where Ryguy currently is. And that's where you need the Jester to be able to make the king laugh, although, a little bit of a spoiler here, the Jester, once he's in the party and speaks to the king, he'll say, well, please give them the Zenithian helm because, well, the reason that you want laughter is because, well, everybody's not happy at the moment, and they'll be able to take out this final boss, and once all the evil is out of the land, well, then you'll be able to have happier times. And the king realizes, well, this was the whole purpose of why I was looking for somebody to make me laugh, so sure, you got it. And Ryguy now acquiring the Jester from Monbarba, and is going to get that quest out of the way, and that will get him that much closer to endgame, having acquired 2 of the pieces of Zenithian gear out of 4, and is still looking for that gas canister. And Gameboy is going to head into Mintos and acquire the 1 party member already. And Ryguy is going to get the Zenithian helm. So, as far as items being sought out, Ryguy currently has the lead with 2 of the 5 items to endgame having been acquired. And just that quickly, Panon leaves the party having done what needs to be done. And this is going to help with the exploration. So VaeluV has found, or has acquired Christo, who earlier in the game learned the spell of return. So that means no traipsing back and forth to the town of Bamalmo or anywhere else that may sell some Wings of Wyvern, as you can just cast the return spell and travel between towns as you please. So Ryguy here is in The cave south of Gardenburg, as it's known in the vanilla game, also known as Bakor's Cave or Backer's Cave. Now, Bakor is the enemy who, well, happened to have stolen that bronze amulet. Gameboy, meanwhile, has gone back to Serene here and is going to do a little inventory management, see who can use some Swords of Lethargy here. And VaeluV here in the Castle of Berlin, where there's access to 6 treasure chests. And it didn't look like it provided anything too terribly fruitful. At least not in terms of those main items that they're looking for. So that's why VaeluV just opted to get rid of the things. Since our runners have the magic key, they're utilizing that to access those certain silver doors that may lead to treasure chests and be able to get our runners what they need to get closer to endgame here. So here is the boss, which tries to run away, and you catch up to him, and he yells darn, and here is this battle. So it's a Bakor and a rather tough late-game enemy in Igerhorn as well. Oh, and these enemies are not playing nice here. Not playing nice for Ryguy at all. Oh, we got a couple of dragon pups that were called to the party as well, so that's going to make it a little more difficult here for Ryguy. So, utilizing the spell of Expel, what that does is that sends the enemy off into the lights. It basically makes them disappear, but you don't get any experience or gold for taking them out. Gameboy, meanwhile, has acquired the Pedequia Seed. And VaeluV is going to go and try to take out Killian here and acquire the last party member. But first has to take out Killian. Now, unlike in Chapter 4, you can win this battle. So Ryguy taking a bit of a risk here with this battle, but he also knows that the final key in getting that access to all these other treasure chests rather important here. As the questing continues, closing in on the 2-hour mark of this race. Thank you those of you joining us and sticking with us here on RPG Limit Break for Questing for Glory 3. I'm Ferran Burgundy. I'm providing the commentary here for this 3-person race between Gameboyf9, Ryguy3745, and VaeluV for Dragon Warrior 4 Randomizer, or as you may know it, Dragon Quest 4 Chapters of the Chosen. So at the moment, VaeluV getting some levels here after taking on and taking out Killian. So he will have all 8 party members at his disposal. Ryguy, meanwhile, is taking on Bakor and is going to try to acquire the final key, which will allow access to all the doors. Gameboy, meanwhile, is heading back to Endor and going to utilize the vault, which is a pretty interesting play that not a lot of runners do, but allow you to take some of those non-essential or no longer needed items and, well, store them away so they're not taking up unwanted space in your inventory. And a question in chat, I think it's more the chapters are about the chosen people. So, as far as who was chosen, I would imagine it would be some deity, but that's a little more existential that we want to get here in this particular stream. That's a philosophical realm that we don't want to necessarily travel. VaeluV, meanwhile, traveling up and up and up as far as the levels and statistics here. As Gameboy has the Pedequius Seed and is going to utilize that for the Pedequia route to acquire some more party members. And Ryguy still working on Bakor as VaeluV, finally done with the leveling up here. And is now going to get the last party member. So, all 8 characters are in play, and this is where the decision process comes in of, alright, who is going to be for the final party? Well, VaeluV now in the town of Santime, or the castle of Santime, and while it's uninhabited by people anymore, it looks like enemies have taken over, and well, we're about to run into an old friend on VaeluV's screen, and I use that term friend rather loosely. Yep. Balzac's back. And is definitely bulked up for this fight. And thankfully that was a quick fight. And now here comes more leveling on VaeluV's side. And as that was going on, I'm presuming that Ryguy did not take out Bakor here, as, yep, is heading back into that cave. So because of the experience in gold being multiplied by 5, that allows for quicker leveling and a little bit more life quality in terms of playing this game. Because I mean, we've already got some games that were 9-something hours on here. We don't need this one to be another one of those. Some are shorter, some are longer. They're all good games, though. To answer a question in chat as far as the pronunciation, both V's are capitalized, so that's, as far as I know, and I double-checked with him beforehand, but as far as I know, VaeluV is the pronunciation. So, Gameboy working on Killian here. Meanwhile, Ryguy going in the second battle. And I don't think anything fruitful had come from the search of the 3 treasure chests in Santine. At least nothing that I had picked up on or noticed. Yeah, if there was a gas canister, there would have been an automatic return to Riverton. So, VaeluV looking at the stats here. And Amazing Toaster, thank you for the Monty Python reference. Also greatly appreciated. Yes, it is pronounced Throat Wobbler Mangrove. So, VaeluV now is in the Tempto Mine, which we didn't really check out much earlier, but, well, looks like those diggers dug a little too deep as they found themselves a big ol' underworld here. Now, VaeluV opting to go to this first because of all of the remaining all the remaining locations, I should say. This one has the most accessible treasure chests to try to acquire those endgame items. Now, the question in chat, as far as why some of the screens are messed up, there are some various glitches that occur because of the double walking speed, the speed hacks. It tends to, as noted by See the Improv in chat, it tends to break the graphics a little bit. So you have some checkered screens, you have an exploding rock animation from the Symbol of Faith cave, just to name a couple here. Now, our runners could save their game and reset and pick back up, and they'll get rid of those visual, I guess, visual atrocities, perhaps. But for now, we're just handling them as best we can. So here in Esturk, there are 9 treasure chests here. So hoping that one of them has... well, at least one of them has the Zenithian gear that is being sought out here. Oh, there's the Zenithian armor, so that's one of them. So Esturk is required. So that just leaves 2 more things to find. We've got the Zenithian sword and the gas canister. Ryguy, meanwhile, has taken out Bakor this time around, and will soon be getting the final key. So 2 more treasure chests here. And then that one that's being guarded by the skeleton, well, you gotta take out the big boss Esturk to be able to do so. Or to be able to access it, I should say. And of note here, well, the battle with Darn has already finished here in this case, at least on Ryguy's side. There's still 2 more opportunities, though, as Gameboy and VaeluV still have to get into that particular cave. So there is the final key for Ryguy3745. There were 2 Darns, but Ryguy ended up taking a death and had to go face the face Bakor once, or a second time, I should say. Alright, so Ryguy doing a little bit of shopping. Game Boy is back on the map here, is in the southwest corner of the land. Yes, there was a darn and a drat. Very adroitly put. So Ryguy is gonna use the final key to take Alina there out of jail. It's a get out of jail free key as opposed to the card for the Monopoly fans out there. And VaeluV taking out Esther and getting a whole bunch more experience and levels here. Oh, and there's a big old metal babble sword for Mara. One of the stronger weapons in the game. But the inventory's looking a little full, so gonna have to do a little bit of selling. And the skeleton's gone, and protected was a... little bit of a swing and a miss on that one. Oh, and there's the gas canister in the town of Berlin, or the castle of not Berlin. Getting them all mixed up here. Branca, that's right. I knew it began with a B. So, right now, just kind of looking for all of the easily accessible places. Laknaba has 3 locations there, but yeah, that gas canister is huge for Ryguy. So I don't know if he's found Riverton yet, but once he does, that means basically the ship will be rendered irrelevant. So that is a huge find for Ryguy. So the gamble early on, yep, there is Riverton, and it's gonna, provide the gas canister to that individual there, who's gonna build a hot air balloon, and wow, look at all that metal babble equipment. So, at least for the moment, I would say with the acquisition of that final key and the gas canister, I think the lead has shifted over to Ryguy at this point. VaeluV still has 1 more Zenithian gear to find as opposed to 2 for Ryguy, but that gas canister will make the exploration so much easier, as VaeluV will run into random encounters while traveling around on the ship, and Ryguy, well, will not. So Ryguy's now going to head over to Dire Palace, as with the final key, he'll be able to access 4 more treasure chests. Good question in chat. So what all is randomized? Oh boy, there's a lot. So the enemies, for the most part, are randomized. Their skills are definitely randomized. The overworld map most certainly is, as well as the locations, the caves and towns. The treasure chest contents are shuffled around. Oh goodness. The enemies that you can encounter, that is mixed up here. There's quite a few different things that, the characters in the respective chapters, as well as their non-playable compatriots, those are randomized. I mean, there's so much to it. And so far, not a whole lot here in Dire Palace. Okay, so a little bit of a bust there in Dire Palace. Yes, it's a very in-depth randomizer, and it's starting to pick up a little bit of steam here. It's one that I didn't realize could be randomized, and once I found out about it, I thought, oh, good, here we go. Now, Ryguy is going to head over to one of the final places, since he's able to float in here, and is going to look up 2 additional treasure chests, and also a couple of shops here as well. But is looking for that Zenithian sword, and well, he doesn't realize it yet, but the Zenithian armor as well. Question, chat: how do you complete the game if the chapters themselves are not randomized? Just the characters within them are. So you still go chapters 1 through 5. The story doesn't change. You know, you don't start with "They lived happily ever after" before Once Upon a Time. So the story arc is the same, it's just the characters who play in those roles are different. So Ryguy doing a little bit of shopping here. Meanwhile, Gameboy is in the cave south of Gardenburg, better known as Bacor's Cave. And Ryguy finding a sword, but it's a copper one, not a Zenithian one. So this is not normally a conventional place to check, but since Ryguy has the balloon, figures, alright, take advantage of it here. This is usually closer to an endgame type spot. And gets an ice blade, not too shabby, but not what he is looking for. Is there any weighing as to where the go mode items can be? Well, it kind of depends. In this case, Ryguy heading in the right direction to get I'm thinking Dragon Warrior 1. Get the Zenithian armor here. As, yes, the Darns are coming out in chat as Gameboyf9 taking on Bacor here. A lot of our runners tend to go where the most treasure chests are because, well, the more treasure chests in a particular location, the more likely you are to find it. So that's why S-Turk is kind of desired, as is the Dire Palace. The Colossus is definitely one that's gone to a lot. Berlin that has 6 treasure chests within the castle, although this at this point is a little bit of a dud. To answer the question, the go mode for Dragon Warrior 4, it's all 4 pieces of the Zenithian gear and the gas canister as well as the final key. Although I don't know if you necessarily... There may be some seeds that, if all those items are not necessarily in items behind the final key, it may not necessarily be required, but that is rather rare. But Ryguy is going to be thrilled going through these treasure chests here, and will be 1 item away from essentially being in grind and go mode. Yeah, high density checks and some of the things. Yep, there's that Zenithian armor. It's, yeah, part high density checks and also part what is available to you as far as being able to search. If you don't have the final key, that eliminates a few of the options that you can go to. If you don't have the Staff of Transform, that means that you can't activate Dire Palace and check that, which thus grants you access to S-Turk, which is where Ryguy currently is and VaeluV was previously. So the one item that we don't necessarily know where it is at this point yet is the Zenithian sword. And Gameboy, meanwhile, has taken out our good friend Darn, or Bakor, as he's also known. So Gameboy just moments away from getting the final key. So a lot of this particular point of the game is just looking around the various lands of the map and trying to find places where you may be able to find treasure chests. VaeluV passing up one of the spots, which is the World Tree. That was that lone tree in the middle of the desert there. As Ryguy working on S-Turk. So, as there's a little bit of a lull here, I just want to send thanks to behind the scenes here, Scala Kitty taking care of the restream for the moment here, all the admins for Questing for Glory here doing a fantastic job. I know some of them, Scala one of them, as well as High Spirits as well. And thank you, speaking of High Spirits, for the answer to the question in chat. The Leaf of the World Tree, which you can find in that particular tree. Well, it, yeah, it gives you a reviving of a character as well as a revive up to max. So we've got levels galore here as Ryguy has taken out S-Turk. And Gameboy is acquiring the final key. And to answer the question in chat, yes, the 3 players will find the same random item in the same spot. No, the seed itself, while it's randomized, all 3 are playing the same seed. Goodness no, it'd be way too difficult to track 3 completely different seeds going on at the same time because the lands are different, the treasure chest contents are different. I'm having a heck of a time as it is just trying to keep this all straight. So to Paul Doug, at this point, Ryguy, as far as the getting ready to go items, Ryguy has the lead as all he needs is the Zenithian sword. He has the armor, the shield, the helm, and the gas canister. And has already acquired the balloon, plus has the final key. VaeluV is now working on getting the final key, and that will allow him access to where the gas canister is that neither Game Boy nor VaeluV have found yet, and that is in the Castle of Branca. There's a question here, is there ever a need to grind for gold in random here? Very rarely, but with the settings of this being 5 times experience and 5 times gold, that grind is very, very minimal. Thank you, Lance Rains. I do appreciate the kind words here. As Game Boy gonna head into Berlin and access the 6 treasure chests there, and won't exactly be thrilled with the results. How long would it take to casually play the game? Probably as long as you want to grind, in all honesty. No, oh goodness, I'm not great with those types of estimates here. I mean, there are a lot of quality of life things that are being placed in the randomizer to make it much more visually friendly, as we don't want to be here for the very rest of the week. But yeah, it's not too terrible here. Alright, so we have Ryguy now checking out Colossus. There are 5 treasure chests in here. Now, normally in the vanilla version of the game, you utilize this to access the area that has the Dire Palace. So Ryguy is hoping that the Zenithian Sword is in here, as that'll basically put him into go mode. And yes, the double speed as far as walking is enabled in this, and that's why characters are trailing behind and why there are some other graphical glitches and hiccups. And yes, the random encounters are lowered as well, I believe 1/4 of the standard encounter rate. And Ryguy has found not the sword. VaeluV, meanwhile, has taken out Bakor, or Darn, and is going to acquire the final key as well. So I'm pretty sure if Ryguy finds the Zenithian Sword in here, is going to immediately head on out. But lunch will not do it. Although that reminds me, I am a bit peckish. So VaeluV is back in Monbarb. And opts not to stay and instead goes to Gardenburg. And that's where the final key will be acquired here. Game Boy back in Endor for the meanwhile, and that's going to be a good place to look here at night, as that will get him the Zenithian Shield. So it looked like the Colossus there might have been a bust. And I thought I said meanwhile, but I also am battling a cold, so that's why there are some various pauses just to take care of things that occur when you have a cold. So now back into Monbarba is VaeluV, and is going to go ahead and acquire the Jester to get the Zenithian Helm. And Ryguy, you can see, taking advantage of the gas canister, just able to float over all the land and take a look at, alright, where haven't I been yet? What places do I have to search? Basically, where is this Zenithian sword? And knowing Ryguy like I do, there may be an unsavory word or two in there somewhere in between this and Zenithian sword. So Ryguy gonna head over to the World Tree. And Maximus, I'm not sure if that is a Game Grumps reference, but if it is, thank you very much. Gotta love that reference. All these flavors and you choose to be salty. May or may not have used that line a time or two. Alright, there is a rather salty scent pouch, as it's not an item that Ryguy wants to utilize. And Game Boy there in Riverton is going to hold off on, at least I thought was going to hold off on the Colossus, but nope, is going to go on in there. VaeluV getting the wooden hat, Lamp of Darkness, getting that treasure map there in Laknaba. Alright, Ryguy finding that Pedequia Cave and heading right back on out of it. And yes, the movement is sped up. There is the double walking speed that is enabled with this, and that creates some graphical glitches that occur. So this is where the stress tends to come in of, alright, where haven't I looked yet? What do I still have to find? Now, I think a place that they have access to, because I don't know if they've necessarily acquired the Stone of Drought, but there are 3 treasure chests in the Royal Crypt that they can go to. And they've already checked everything in Gardenburr, so that's out. So Ryguy here back in Berlin just to stay at the inn. Oh, maybe he hasn't yet checked those 6 treasure chests. So I won't be very thrilled with this here. So we have VaeluV in the Colossus, which we know doesn't have anything that they're looking for. Now the other thing, and this is a bit of a back and forth as well, the decision of when to fight some of the enemies and when to just go search. That's a constant battle that tends to go on in terms of making decisions. Now, there was an interesting thing on Gameboy's side there, how there was an earthquake that had occurred and the ground opened up and it swallowed the guardian enemy. Yes, what ended up happening there is, well, it's one of what's known as the Tulun Insanities. Tulun is the merchant, and it was something that they would replicate, or they'd replicated from Dragon Warrior 3, or Dragon Quest 3 with the Goof-Off character. Is sometimes they can just kind of do some random things. And no, this is the area that Gameboy and VaeluV were in was known as the Statue of Colossus, or Colossus Statue. Now the tree has a lot of leaves in it. Alrighty. So now here we've got the Cascade Cave, so there's 5 treasures in here. And VaeluV also looking in this same spot here. So if the Zenithian Sword is here, both of our runners, VaeluV and Ryguy, will be basically finding it at around the same time. And then pretty much when they get that last item, they're basically pretty much in go mode to finish things up here. But they have to find that one last little thing here. 480 gold. Only a few more treasures left here. Oh, there's the Baron's Horn, so that is going to be helpful for the very end part of the game, in that you have to travel through this one particular palace to get to where Necrosaro is. And once you travel through there, well, you can't bring your wagon with you, but if you use the Baron's Horn, well, it'll bring the wagon on with you, so you'll have backup characters just in case your main party ends up perishing. you'll have reinforcements or reserves to be able to continue the fight. So it looks like the Cascade Cave did not have what they were looking for. So I'm thinking at this point it's either at the very top of the World Tree or it may be in the Royal Crypt. Now Ryguy running into a little bit of an issue here. And may end up taking a death here as the first 3 characters are perished and the last one is asleep. And there is the death. I think that was a perfect bid, too. Had 37 hit points left and got hit for 37. Yeah, that very well could have been a death warp. That is a strategy that Ryguy likes to utilize rather than taking all those winding paths out of the cave and running into all those different... one advantage, I guess, in Dragon Warrior 4 that wasn't in the previous 3 is that you have the option of attacking yourself. So that makes dying much quicker. So Ryguy is back to the search here. Oh, Dragon Warrior 3 does? It's been a while since I played Dragon Warrior 3. I know 1 and 2 don't. So now Game Boy is up here in the World Tree, so we'll see. There is somebody from Zenithia whose wings were clipped and can't quite get back to home. So let's see here. There's the Zenithian sword at the top of the tree. So we now know where all the items are. It's a matter of who's going to get them all first. So Game Boy has found it, and Ryguy, is going in the crypt, and that is going to be... Well, it may bring some decent items, but it's not going to give the item that he's looking for. And yes, the Zenithian sword was in the treasure chest where it is in its vanilla location in the game. So for those just joining us and are familiar with Dragon Warrior 4, the various items that needed to be found, the Zenithian helm is where it usually is. The gas canister was found in the Castle of Branca. Zenithian shield was in Endor, in the king's quarters. Zenithian armor was in Eschurk, not too far before the Eschurk battle. And the Zenithian sword was just found in its vanilla location atop the World Tree. So, with Game Boy having the knowledge of the sword here, if there's some selective locations here, Game Boy could very well catch up here and snipe on this. So I want to thank you once again for joining us here on RPG Limit Break. We are in the midst of questing for Glory 3. For those just joining us, this is a Dragon Warrior 4 randomizer race between Ryguy3745, VaeluV, and the creator of this randomizer, Gameboyf9. I'm Ferran Burgundy, and I've been bringing the action here to you for the last little over 2.5 hours, and we should have a little less than an hour to go as we know all the little tidbits of where everything is and what's needed. It's just a matter of who finds it all first and puts everything all together. So, the Royal Crypt for both of our runners, a bit of a miss. As VaeluV now, all three of our runners have the gas canister, so that advantage is negated. So Ryguy is opting to go with the... Well, at least I thought was opting to go with the battle here, but is instead heading on out and not going to take on Killian here. Interesting. Well, yeah, having such low HP, probably not the best idea. VaeluV is here in the World Tree, so as long as he's able to make it all the way up, he'll be the first to acquire all 5 essential items to be in go mode. So there's the scent pouch, not what VaeluV is looking for. Just need to climb a little bit further and try not to fall off there. Meanwhile, Gameboy has gone through the meeting Dire Palace, so that will allow access to S-Turk, and that will also lead to the Zenithian armor. So in a matter of moments here, VaeluV will take the lead heading into the home stretch, although having, well, 2 characters poisoned is not so terrible. Better than them not being alive, so just have to traverse a little carefully, and they've got plenty of HP. But there are some enemies that, with such attacks as Icy Gusts, can take out well over 120 hit points with one attack, and that hits all the different party members. So VaeluV, not exactly completely in the clear. There's certainly a risk, but if he's able to make it up this tree here, he will have the items that are needed. And then it's just a matter of, alright, how strong do I have to be to go take on that final boss? So there is the acquisition of the non-playable character. Normally it's Lucia, in this case it's Strom, who is one of the hireable mercenaries in Chapter 3. And there is the Zenithian sword on VaeluV's side. The good question is, the final boss randomized in any way? Yes, their effects can be randomized to a degree, and that's part of why a lot of our runners like to use the weapon, the Sword of Lethargy, because when you attack and you land a hit on it, it has a 1/3 chance of falling asleep. So that builds the possibility of, well, of sleep-locking Necrosaro, and that pretty much will make that final battle a lot easier. And VaeluV already on that final island and is not too far away from accessing Zenithia. Alright, so a question in chat here. How are the non-playable characters handled in the randomizer? So, because there was an issue in earlier versions where the characters' vanilla stats were kept regardless of where you found them, that led to some very overpowered NPCs in the early chapters and some very underwhelming NPCs in the later chapters. So, their skills were balanced to whichever chapter they're on. So Ryguy now working on the battle here, and yes, now in the Zenithian Tower at the moment here is VaeluV, and is definitely pulled ahead here with having found that Erdrick Sword, I keep doing that, I'm so used to Dragon Warrior 1, the Zenithian Sword. The cold medicine's kicking in, and well, let's just keep it rolling, boys. We're getting hot now. Alright. So VaeluV opting not to get rid of the poison, so that's why you have that flashing red screen every 4 steps. So Ryguy opting to save and reset to get rid of those graphical glitches. But now is back on the hunt, and oh, another misstep here for Ryguy is looking in the cave west of Kiev's, as there's one lone treasure chest long a ways. Meanwhile, VaeluV has traversed through, and yes, even the cloud is glitched there and is now in the castle of Zenithia. So Ryguy doesn't know it, but this is a bit of a desperate move, and you have to wonder at this point, because there are so many things to check, there's always that occasional oversight of, oh man, what didn't I go to? Or what did I think I checked that I actually didn't? With that, falling through the cloud into the final cave here is VaeluV. And there's a green dragon hitting hard, a little bit of a nod or homage to the original Dragon Warrior, as green dragons and red dragons here. So there are a lot of treasure chests in here, but at this point of the game, well, there's really no need to acquire any additional treasure on VaeluV's part here. And Ryguy has gotten to the tree and just has to climb up it here. But at this point, like the Johnny Mathis and Denise Williams song from the late 70s, it might be too much, too little, too late. So, to answer Scala's question, it's not a classic rock station, but it is a It is an AM station that does cater to an older demographic, so I have a lot of those songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s stuck in my head. And occasionally I'll pull them out for points of reference like this here. So, don't look now, but Game Boy has acquired all the items as well, and currently climbing up to Zenithia. VaeluV has made it out of the final cave, and now we're at the last refuge. So, it's going to get a nice heal up here, and the barrier to the final castle, well, it's held up thanks to 4 Guardian mini-bosses. But VaeluV is going to hold off here, and... Oh, never went to see the Master Dragon to kind of get the power up here. So Master Dragon is going to add a little bit of experience to the hero's total, which allows for a level up, and is also going to bolster the strength of the Zenithian sword, making it even more powerful than it was previously. So this just got really close here, so I have a feeling that all 3 runners are going to finish probably somewhere about 8 to 10 minutes apart from one another here. So VaeluV working on the first of the 4 mini-bosses here. So here is the Giga Demon. And a quick casting of the spell Beat, that takes care of it there, and there's a huge 33,000 experience. And a good point in chat that Ryguy was climbing up the tree and opted after the second chest to bail out and not go all the way up. And, well, we will see if that is what eventually costs him here, potentially. But Game Boy in the final cave. Ryguy getting the Zenithian sword powered up here, but is not going to equip the Zenithian sword, is going to go for the Sword of Lethargy. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct there in chat. This has been a great race. At some point, all 3 different runners have held the lead. It's bounced back and forth. For the moment, though, VaeluV looks to have the lead here. But not too far behind is Game Boy and Ryguy. And thank you, Westlake Math, for the subscription here to the RPG Limit Break Network. And as answered there in chat, yes, if you missed any portion of this run, the VOD will be uploaded to YouTube. They're being uploaded throughout the event, so there may be a little bit of a delay. So now we have the second boss here for VaeluV, the Infernus Shadow. Oh, and Ryguy running into a bit of trouble here with the fairy dragons. And is switching up the party. Now, he has someone who can cast Revive. I'm kind of... I guess maybe it's less time to cast Revive than to switch things around. It's an interesting decision here. Oh, and VaeluV takes a death. So this opens up the opportunity for Gameboy and Ryguy to come back in, as Gameboy now is talking to the head of the last refuge here. Oh, and it was a sacrifice that took out. Yes. The casting of sacrifice, it basically... it destroys all of your enemies, but it also kills you in the process. So, Gameboy now going to work on the first mini-boss here. And now is going to focus on that big sloth, since it had cast Sacrifice previously. And Gameboy, meanwhile, has taken out the Giga Demon. Oh, the big sloth's still sticking around and has a lot of HP, but there we go. It was taken out here, so now there's just the Infernus Shadow. And boy, does it hit hard. So now after all those levels, and there it is for VaeluV, so that is 2 of the 4 mini-bosses down. Ah, well yes, the issue as far as what's happening in this final land, because of the double walking speed, there is a rather noted visual glitch that occurs because, well, the game isn't programmed to handle that kind of fast walking. And the reasoning as far as the numerous levels is one of the flag sets to this form of Dragon Warrior 4 randomizer is the experience in gold are multiplied by 5. So VaeluV still working on leveling up here after taking out the Infernus Shadow. Gameboy currently working on the Infernus Shadow. And Ryguy is about to battle the first mini-boss. So, probably all told, they're within a good 5 to 7 minutes of each other. Now, Ryguy going with an interesting tactic here, not bothering to farm for the experience, just either use the Abacus of Virtue, which works just like the spell of Expel, and that sends that enemy off into the lights. It makes the enemy disappear, but you don't get any experience or gold for it, so that's a lot of leveling that Ryguy doesn't have to wait and take time for here. So that just cut a huge time deficit out for Ryguy here, as now he's working on that second mini-boss, and Gameboy's still working on those levels here. So if he's able to do that with all 4 of these mini-bosses here, that could put Ryguy back in the lead. And High Spirits pointing out that There was a bit of a programming oversight or glitch where if you open the tactics menu and change the party order but then back out and then cast the spell of Heal Us, it works just like the Heal Us All, and it does just that. It heals everybody to their maximum hit points, but with the cost of the spell just for Heal Us, so it saves a little bit there. So just like that, Ryguy has taken out the second mini-boss, and you can see here is now pretty much neck and neck with Game Boy. VaeluV, meanwhile, working on the fourth mini-boss. Using 2 castings of Expel, that works there. And the Abacus not quite working on the Tricksy Urchins. So there's some more levels there for VaeluV, and meanwhile, Ryguy working on taking out the Tricksy Urchins. Got a little bit of a level here. So VaeluV has taken out the fourth of the mini-bosses. Game Boy on his way to the fourth mini-boss, and so too is Ryguy now. But here is the difference. Game Boy looking to level up here, whereas Ryguy just trying to take out enemies and get away as best he can. VaeluV now into Necrosara's palace. So VaeluV firmly in the lead, but not by too terribly much. One death could certainly shake things up here and completely shift the order between these three, as both Game Boy and Ryguy currently working on Randomized, the last of the 4 mini-bosses. But VaeluV working his way through Necrosara's palace, and we'll then be on our way to the final battle. So it seems like the Randomized is rather resistant to the spell of Expel as well as the Abacus of Virtue. So it looks like Ryguy may have to take this enemy out the hard way. And that effort looks to be setting him back behind. VaeluV now walking up that final mountain here, and is on the first battle with Necrosaro. Now there's 7 different forms that has to be gone through here. So after the first one, you'll see that one of the arms will dissolve, almost like the Black Knight in Monty Python the Holy Grail. Just a flesh wound. Come on, then. So now the second phase. Well, that's done, and now the other arm's off. Yeah, have at thee. You've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. So now after the third phase, well, off with his head. And now this is where things get a little weird. The belly writhes grotesquely. And all of a sudden, this is where the children's nightmare fuel begins. So now here is the fourth of the 7 forms. Oh, nice crit there. There's a violent blaze. Okay, here comes phase 5. With some rather large claws. Meanwhile, Gameboy is on the first form of Necrosaro, and Ryguy is about to engage in the battle as well. So this is only a couple of minutes apart here, so if something goes awry in this battle, the lead will definitely shift here. But for the moment, it is VaeluV's race to lose. Now here come the grown-out legs. Now that's the other thing. Taloon has some weird insanities that can certainly turn the tide here as well. But will it be enough as VaeluV on the penultimate phase before finishing things out here? And there is, oh boy, the second head. Put the women and children to bed, as JR would say. For the wrestling fans out there. Here is that five-eyed monster. Five-eyed, two-horned, flying green people eater. So, final form here for VaeluV. Two forms behind is Gameboy. Oh, and there's that icy gust. That is what makes that last form so problematic. Cass heal us all, though. And yes, what has allowed Gameboy to catch up are some of those weird quirks with Taloon. Those Taloon insanities. So now, at this point, it pretty much comes to the attacks here. But this is extremely close between all three of our runners. We're just a matter of a couple of minutes away here as all three racers are in the final battle. This is probably going to finish maybe 2 to 3 minutes between all three of our runners here. VaeluV on the final form. Gameboyf9 on the final form. Ryguy just 2 forms behind. Yeah, we are not too far from the end here, folks. And VaeluV has done it. VaeluV is the first to take out the final form of Necrosaro. Now, time will occur once the final castle has, or once the runners have escaped Zenithia Castle, or left the castle here. So we are just a little bit away here from VaeluV. Just going to be a little bit of walking through after getting the accolades here from Master Dragon. And saying, well, as much as you'd like me to rule here, I want to go back with my friends who helped us save the world. So as soon as VaeluV walks out here and walks out of the clouds, that will be time. And into the clouds we go. So VaeluV is going to take first place here in this 3-person race with an official SRL time of 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 52 seconds. And that certainly was a heck of a race, and both of these two are not going to be too terribly far behind. As Ryguy now working on the final form, Gameboy taking out the final form. So yeah, there's definitely a lot going on. I'm sure if this was a solo run or even a 2-person race, I might be able to explain it a little bit better, but given everything that's going on, I hope that I was able to keep things at an understandable pace despite everything that's going on here. Now, Gameboy going to leave Zenithia Castle as well. And Gameboy is going to take second place here. Finishing just 1 minute and 22 seconds behind VaeluV, taking an official SRL time of 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 14 seconds. And Ryguy taking out Necrosaro as well. So yeah, this is going to be about a little less than 3 minute difference between all of our 3 racers here. Yeah, Ryguy temporarily pausing to hop into the SRL chat, noting that that they're going to finish fairly close to one another here. And Ryguy going to take third place here, but certainly not a slouch by any means, finishing just 2.5 minutes behind first place. 3 hours, 12 minutes, and 22 seconds is the time. So, yeah, all 3 of our runners finishing within 2.5 minutes of each other on a 3+ hour seed. I knew it was going to be close, and it just felt like it was getting closer and closer once we got to the end here. So our restreamer, Scala, is working on seeing if the 3 runners can join the voice chat for a post-race interview real quick here. As we have a little bit of time as our next scheduled run coming up in a little over 20 minutes from now. It's going to be the game Evoland for the PC, and it's going to be run by I Am Althena, who's currently in the green room getting all set for that race here, but we'll have a chat in a matter of moments here regarding this fantastic randomizer race that, despite being 3+ hours long, all three runners finished within 2.5 minutes of one another.
Hello?
Hello there.
We have joining us here, we have Gameboyf9, our second place finisher, and VaeluV, our victor here, and Ryguy just joining us here as well. GG to all three of you. That was a heck of a race.
Thank you. Yeah, good job, everybody. It seems like it was a really, really close one. I think, 3 minutes between everybody?
2.5 minutes.
Wow.
Exactly 2 minutes and 30 seconds between first and third place.
I was kind of tempted to take some laps around the library at the end, but I did win Chapter 5 Completionist, though. I got every single chest, just so y'all know.
I got nearly every chest. I hate
In first and third place.
the world tree, and so
I was kind of tempted to take some laps around the library at the end, but
Yeah, the avoidance of the world tree was
I did
what
win Chapter 5
provided a huge
Completionist,
setback.
though. I got
of
every
course,
single
the world tree having
no.
the Zenithian sword in its vanilla location, of course, and Gameboy apparently having some audio issues with Discord, as is wont to do, so he'll be joining us via the text here in the RPG Limit Break channel.
I hate it when that technology doesn't come together.
Just upgraded to... Okay, well, that'll certainly do it. Yeah, still managing the upgrade to Windows 10. So, let's talk a little bit about Chapter 1, which was not very friendly in terms of items and seemed to be a little bit more of a slog than I think anybody would have really preferred.
Man, I was grinding near the shadow, and I had like 3 HP, so I was like, oh, let's go check him out. The first thing he did was wing away, and that gave me so much hope, and then I don't think I saw a wing for a very long time after that, and that eyeball wasn't a fan.
See, and I was really trying to do the Flora glitch. I wanted to have her in my party so that I could have Flora in my party for the rest of the game. But after a few encounters there and seeing that I was just Ragnar with no spells, I figured I'd better go turn her into the NPC. So that took up a little bit of time. And then, yeah, just grinding. I mean, the monsters there were not nice either. There was stuff that had icy breath or something that did a lot of murderlating.
And there was a question in chat. Apparently, Game Boy was the only one to save Tov the dog from Chapter 3.
Yay! Alright, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can.
Okay, alright, yeah, I was the only one to save the dog. Well, then I went automatically, right?
That's it. Any percent win qualifier is to rescue the dog. That was the hidden objective.
Yeah, it's the seed validator, a la a Spark Over Bridge in Dragon Warrior 1.
But hey, it could have been the silver statuette, in which case that would have been a great gamble.
For sure. Speaking of silver statuettes, I was really glad that I dived into that first cave in Chapter 3, where the iron safe normally is. That ice blade there made Chapter 3 go pretty quickly.
I was going to say I skipped that one, but there was pretty high-powered stuff in the Statuette Cave, so I was all right there. And what was it? There was some big sword I was selling, Sword of Miracles or something in Endor, so it wasn't too bad otherwise.
Yeah, it was hilarious when I sold that ice staff and I got ice blade and I got $114,000. I was just hoping my gold count wasn't going to overflow on me. and what was chapter 1? I missed that part.
Chapter 1 was just, it didn't really have anything to make it go smoothly. I think everybody finished a little, I think 15 and a half minutes was the quickest of the times between the three of you. And usually anything under 15 is more ideal, but the item drops were next to nil, and it was a slog.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty challenging but fair chapter 1. Chapter 2, I flunked on the first attempt on Chameleon Humanoid, and then I finally zapped them out of the game, so that was fun.
That Lingwar C, though, I think I must have swung on him 10 times and missed. I had to do the tournament twice.
Oh no, I had the best Lingor. I think I tried attacking B 2 or 3 times and I got sick of it, so I was like, oh, let's try A, and then he went over to B. So I was like, oh, I'll go back to B, and I attacked B a whole bunch and missed. So I'm like, oh, forget this. I'm going to go back to A. And then he was B for like 5 turns. I could not hit him to save my life.
Yeah, I think it took me about 15 rounds to knock Lingwar out.
Yeah, Lingwar was definitely one of the trolls of the seed here. But would you expect nothing less?
Yeah, and then how about chapter 4?
Chapter 4 was all right. I don't recall any difficulty with Chapter 4. It's all kind of a blur, those early chapters, a bit.
I was going to say, I remember Chapter 4 was buy a Sword of Lethargy, grind a whole bunch, and sleep block Balzacs.
Yeah, what was your final party? I wound up with the hero, Bray, Mara, and Talon.
I had the same except for Ragnar instead of Talon.
Yeah, I had Ragnar and 3 people that could wield the Sword of Lethargy. Sounds like the same as Vale.
Talon helped me skip a couple phases of the Necrocero fight. First, he fell through a crack. His first phase fell through a crack, and his second phase got carried away by the white dragon.
Love it.
I was wondering about that, but I think when we had Talon at the beginning, I didn't see him do any of his insta-deaths, so I wasn't too interested in keeping him around.
I couldn't find any armor that he could equip, so I kind of gave up on him for the party.
Yeah, neither did I, but when I started seeing giants go by for 100 points and the merchants showing up, I was like, yeah, I'm going to try with Talon. And not only that, it got to show everyone in the watching what fun things Talon can do in the newer versions of this randomizer.
He certainly is a character. But no, I didn't find any Swords of Lethargy. I didn't really do much shopping at all in that seed. I just went straight for you got sap and we're real strong, so let's do it the old-fashioned way.
Oh yeah, they were like 2,200 gold and a whole bunch of shops, so I was using them in Chapter 2 and I think Chapter 4 also, and then I just loaded up in 5 also.
Nice.
Yeah, so I will say this, as the author of this randomizer, I'd like to thank everyone for watching. It was hope you all enjoyed this demonstration, this race. I'm really glad to see that this was differentiated by only 2.5 minutes. I thought I was just going to get thrashed, and I was happy that I lost while I was still working on the final form of Necrocero. I mean, I'll take that as a win against 2 very good opponents. So, yeah, it was good times.
Yeah, we must have had triple Necrosauros, right? If we're only 2.5 minutes apart. I was worried every chest I opened in Chapter 5 without that sword, I was figuring I was falling further and further behind.
Yeah, I felt the same way. So anyways, I'm looking forward to going back and watching the VOD on this. And again, thanks everybody. Thanks for the race. Thanks for Ron for commentating this, and Shala Kitty for the restreams there. And of course, RPG Limit Break and Questing for Glory and all the people that are making this happen. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've pretty much ditto everything you said. So, yeah, awesome. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, really glad we got a chance to race here and Questing for Glory on RPG Limit Break, but also, in addition, thanks to Shala and Furon and RPG Limit Break, but also thank you, Game Boy. This has been a really fun randomizer. We're glad for all the work you do on this, and it's been really fun to play, so couldn't have had one without you, so thank you, Game Boy.
Yeah, been a pleasure, and we'll see you next race.
Yeah, plenty of things still coming here on the Questing for Glory 3 marathon here. Make sure to give our runners a follow, Gameboyf9, VaeluV, and Ryguy3745. And thank you again to Shala Kitty, who's taking care of the restreaming duties here in the midst of things. And you can give me a follow if you like as well. I'm Furon Burgundy. I've been providing the commentary here for you tonight. And I thank you so much for tuning in here to RPG limit break for Questing for Glory 3. We're going to take a few moments here to kind of pause and set everything up here, as we're only slightly ahead of schedule, as about 10 minutes from now, we are going to have I Am Alfina here, who is going to be playing Evoland here on the PC. So thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Ferran Burgundy saying may your moves be excellent and your seeds stay classy. So long, everyone.